Good morning, good morning, good morning to everyone joining us once again for a weekly broadcast, Thursday, 10 a.m. We've just had a bit of a discussion about Thanksgiving and Christmas before coming on live. So it's that time of the year again where we talk about festivities and lots of food and family time. So you were just saying, John, that next week is Thanksgiving in America.
It is in the U.S. As I might have said, Harvest Festival. So if you think about it, Canada has their Thanksgiving a month earlier because their harvest would have come in earlier, given the further north, the weather, the growing season, all that. But yeah, next Thursday. So we'll talk about it next Thursday.
Yeah, sounds good. Good morning to Mark Afeeva. How are you? You keeping well?
Very well, David. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll be hearing from you.
Thanks for having me again.
No, fantastic. We're hearing from you as our special guest quite soon. So let's get straight into it. Again, lots to get into as normal. So for anyone who's joining maybe for the first time, this is a short weekly broadcast that we do. This is a joint broadcast. Leo Crowdfunding is an equity property crowdfunding platform. I am the CEO of that company, and my resident co-host, I'll let him introduce himself and his company.
Yeah, John Corey, Property Fortress, basically education to investing, sort of the spectrum. Been a long-term property investor, real estate investor, US, UK, Hawaii to Bradford. So. And
a bit of a clue giving our opening comments. John's actually based in the US, not in the UK these days. So he does travel back and forward, but currently in the US. So that just adds another dimension to our broadcast, very international, which is great. Okay, so by way of update today, we're not going to do a market update. We're going to do just a very brief update on some of the projects that are on the platform. We did launch Becontree Avenue in Dagenham. This was tranche 2 of a project last Thursday. It actually funded to the minimum in about 4 hours last week. So a very exciting time. If anyone saw us on social media, some of the PLMD staff were gathered around a big TV screen as we went live, and then as it reached its minimum target. So it's currently at 155,500 from 22 different investors, and you can still obviously go there and invest. It's open until the 23rd of November. So John, it was interesting to get another project funded in terms of reaching its target. Obviously we haven't moved to shareholder agreement and drawdown yet, but in terms of the interest in this type of an income type project was interesting.
Well, I've said to a few people, it's essentially it's like buying a piece of a buy-to-let, only it's a collection of units all in one building, one site. It has relatively high net yield or net returns based on the projections. No guarantees, but at the same time, if you can get a 12% projected return on a London property, generally people would be very happy with that. For those that do have property in the London area or anywhere else in the UK, and you have some equity trapped in it, this might be a project you should study. Go read up on how this developer, this company is taking out some of their equity so they can move on to the next project and what that all means. So it's a good educational opportunity if you just pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, thanks for that. So just to reiterate, when we say success, we mean that we've reached our minimum target in terms of 100,000. But obviously we move now to shareholder agreement once it closes on the 23rd, and then initially onto the drawdown. So it's not a funded project in terms of drawdown to the developer, but we have reached our minimum target, which is absolutely fantastic.
Before you go on that one, and on any of these projects, you can also use these projects as an opportunity to ask questions, hear the answers, see what other people are thinking by using the forum. So there's every single offer on the platform has always been an opportunity to engage and to learn and to understand, like, how does someone do this? How if I want to do it myself in the future, what would I do?
No, that's a really, really good point. And on this next project particularly, I know there's a number of questions have been asked, and some great discussions actually on the forum. So that's a really good point, John. Thanks for highlighting that. For those that maybe weren't on last week, we actually had there was a payout on the planning uplift project in Bristol. This is Church Road, Winterbourne, and we actually had Ed join us for a few minutes. Just obviously quite excited and sort of satisfied that he has another project on the platform that has actually returned funds to the investors with the target ROI. So that was certainly interesting, and why that's relevant is he has launching today his next project. So just while I explain this should play a short drone footage. There's no sound on it, so I'm going to just talk over the top of it. But this is a village on the edge of Bristol. You see right in the center of the screen there, you can just about make out some of the people there on the site visit. The beautiful site to erect a single dwelling. Planning has been achieved. Beautiful views of the countryside. Ed actually pointed out, John, that he actually walked by this site on his way to school when he was younger. So he's a bit of an emotional attachment to this area. But this is the location. Certainly very, very spectacular views over the countryside. And yeah, I'll just jump on to the next one from there. And this project launches today on the platform, live for investment at 12 noon. So this is the construction phase of the 4-bed single dwelling. Say planning has been achieved, and Ed's looking to raise a maximum of 200,000, and that's to actually purchase the plot. So the option agreement that he has that was subject to planning, he can now trigger and execute the purchase, and it's a 200k purchase on that. So he's offering a projected return on investment of 25% per annum. He reckons the build and the sale of the property should be in around 12 months, but he's obviously made a projected ROI there. And you can actually go to our YouTube channel. You can see the link there, youtube.com/Leo crowdfunding, and you can access a project webinar that happened last Tuesday. So I say this does go live today at 12 noon. You can go on to the thumbnail, you can download the equity offer document and decide if you want to invest in this project if and when you're ready. And certainly there's been a lot of strong interest in this, John. I think a big factor is that this is 4th raise for this developer, and he's paid back on 2 of those. So I think that leads into the concept of crowdfunding, of building trust between investors and developers.
Yeah, well, I was thinking it started 4th raise. I couldn't remember. I've actually invested in, I think, 2 of these so far. And yeah, it is an opportunity to dip your toe in the water, try out the relationship, see how the party that you're investing in performs. And then if you like what they do, if you like how they handle the communication, all the rest of it, and it goes well enough, then you would say, well, okay, I'm happy to come around again. Why go try a new horse when the one you have is perfectly adequate? And if you're happy with how Ed is, sharing updates and providing information, then it's like, hey, tell me when you get your next one.
Yes, it's looking forward to it. He's excited, and we're certainly excited as a platform. I've been on site here. Dalray, our investment portfolio manager, has been on site, so we're very familiar with it. And yeah, looking forward to it. And our recorded interest, to say, has been very strong. So let's see what happens at 12 o'clock. Another one kicks off. So straight over now to our special guest today. Just pointing out, Mark, I told you you'd be on at 10:10, and it's 10:10. So there you are.
Spectacular timing. Very impressed, David.
Right on it. Right on it. Yeah, really delighted, Mark, to have you on today. We've obviously sort of first connected probably about, I think, 2.5 years ago. I think we had our first exchange of emails.
I think we just started.
Yeah, I had a few phone calls, so maybe be longer, maybe be over 3 years. Had a few phone calls, stayed in touch. I know you obviously know John Corey and had some interactions with John. You also know Tony and Aisha Forey, had some contact with them. So yeah, really sort of very interested today. We're calling this our real life property journey, as we used to do this quite a lot. Going back probably started last year, and that is just getting a feel for someone's journey in property. You're a little bit unique, probably given that your current day job, but I will hand over to you and let you explain a bit about your background, and then John and I'll kind of just tease different things out as we go along, and then we'll we'll move on to an exciting announcement that we're making today for you. So initially, yeah. So what's your background, Mark? Career choice, and then we'll move into property.
Yeah, so as I said, really appreciate the opportunity to come and share my story and give an insight to the Stafford Gardens projects. But in terms of background, been a practicing barrister now since 1997 at a chambers called Matrix Chambers in London. The great thing about being a barrister, quite a few downsides, but the great thing about being a barrister is that we're self-employed. So there's lots of flexibility in terms of the opportunity to undertake other projects if one is so minded. So at the moment, my main area of practice is sports law. You and I spoke about that because obviously you've got a particular interest in football. So I tend to act for football players, clubs, managers, and football agents. And that's quite interesting because obviously a lot of what one reads in the paper sees me from time to time in the background, understanding the real detail rather than the headlines. And in addition to that, my dad started a family business. So my dad's background is that he was a nurse for over 27 years in the NHS, a charge nurse in charge of mental health wards. And he decided to start his own home care company, providing care to vulnerable adults, mainly the elderly, in their own homes. That was back in 1997. And I think he always detected an entrepreneurial streak in me. And throughout the early part of my career at the bar, he was constantly making overtures to me, come and join the family business, come and join the family business. Aging population demographics are perfect for us to make this a great success. And I think like a lot of professionals, whether it's law or accountancy, medicine, after 10, 15 years of doing it, you kind of start to think, okay, I can do this now. What's the plan for the next 15 years? That kind of tends to coincide with approaching one's 40th birthday as well, and the onset of potential midlife crisis.
I'm not sure John can remember quite far back as his 40th birthday, but we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, so eventually I decided to come on board and eased off the legal practice. So as it stands now, I do a limited amount of law. As I said, the flexibility of the bar being self-employed is that it still works. A fair amount of involvement in terms of the family care business. I mean, we've got over 250 clients spread across 6 boroughs in London, doing approximately 5,000 hours of care every week. So it's a quite significant logistical exercise to get all the carers where they need to be at the right time to deliver the essential services that we do. And in addition to that, I think probably around 2005 or so, I got introduced to some people who were very much taking part and taking advantage of the easy money that was around prior to the credit crunch in 2008, and had the opportunity to acquire a fairly significant buy-to-let portfolio spread across the southeast from Brighton right the way over to Southend, and a number of units dotted around London as well. So that gave me a real feel for property as an entree. To this day, I still manage the majority of those myself because I like that personal interaction, and I like the ability to have relationships with my tenants. It's not always great, and I do sometimes regret that, but fundamentally it's worked now for over 15 years. And that kind of then started, the property interest then started to dovetail into the home care activity. So home care, social care, everyone will be aware, has lots of challenges, constant headlines that, social care is in crisis. And it's true, it's a really difficult marketplace to be in because most of our work comes from local authorities in terms of them referring vulnerable adults to us who need care. And local authorities don't have much money. So that makes it really, really difficult. And so I started to look at ways of diversifying the family business and started to think about retirement apartments. So not a care home, but retirement apartments where able-bodied older people would want to live and retire, downsize from the family 5-bed into a 2-bed apartment with potentially some services, communal services on the ground floor, for example, as they saw fit. And looked into that in a lot of detail, did a lot of research, spoke to some funders about it, and it seemed like an attractive proposition. But this was around the time of Brexit. And you may recall around 2016 to 2018, obviously, economically, the country was in a very difficult position because of the uncertainty relating to Brexit. And what that meant was that a lot of the baby boomers, who would be my target audience in terms of, or target demographic in terms of retirement apartments purchasers, decided to sit on their hands because of the feeling that they had that they weren't going to get what they felt was the right value for their lovely 5-bedroom house where husband and wife are now rattling around because the kids have flown the nest. And so a lot of the companies that were already in that market space, some of them like McCarthy and Stone, for example, you may have heard of, were really struggling to find purchasers for their retirement apartments. And for the first time, in order to start to get a return on their investment, they had no choice but to look at rental models, which had never been done before. Retirement apartments traditionally were always purchased, but they just had to get some capital back. And so I thought, okay, probably best if I swerve that particular market. So then I started looking at development more generally, and started working with partners like Michael McGee, Cyril Ogunmakin, who are fellow directors of mine within the Danielese business. And as a collective, it's allowed us to take forward a number of projects, everything from PD through to new builds and some conversions as well. So that's let's
unpack that just a little bit. It's a really good kind of overview. Reverse just very quickly back to the day job of looking after I suppose disputes. Apparently Cristiano Ronaldo is looking for a good lawyer at the minute in his argument with Manchester United. So there you are.
Yeah,
a bit of business there in that one for you.
They're not arguing; they're having a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think putting the legals aside for a minute, I do think it is terrible for one to treat one's employer in that way. If you've got concerns, you either deal with them in-house when you're still employed, or you raise those issues once you've left. But you can't do that to an organization that's paying you £600,000 a week net.
There's no question that's only going to end one way. Although that's probably what he wanted. He probably wanted in some ways. He didn't do it by chance. But anyway, we'll move on that one. So what was it took you into property? So you're a practicing barrister. I know you said about the family business, but was there anything particular that you looked at property and went, I wanted, this is something I want to be involved in? And the second part of that question is, you say you manage your own current portfolio. How do you find the time? How do you find the time to do that? How do you find the time?
I'm a fully paid up member of the 5 a.m. club. And that extra hour and a half, 2 hours in the morning before the kids jump on my back and say, daddy, 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 makes a huge difference in terms of quality time where I can really get things done and set up for the day. And in terms of property and why property, I think increasingly, the more I looked at it, the more I liked the idea, even before I had kids, of legacy and making a permanent difference. It was one of the reasons why I went into law. That initially I actually used to practice as a media entertainment lawyer as well as doing sports law, because I found that there were large numbers of people from the Black community in the UK who didn't have legal representation for people who looked like them and particularly understood the nuances of their concerns in a legal context when they had a dispute. And the ability to make a difference is something that's always driven me. And one of the ways of doing that, as well as doing law to the best of one's ability, is building properties which are beautiful, which are going to stand the test of time, and which people are actually going to be proud to live in and say, yeah, this is my home. And it's a real challenge because, as everyone knows, the way the property industry and in particular the planning system is set up, it's almost designed to make one fail. And overcoming those challenges is something which stimulates me, it drives me. Stafford Gardens, for example, this current project started in August 2020, right in the middle of COVID, and significant delays have taken place as a result of COVID, but it's allowed us actually to really fine tune the proposition we're about to put to the council and engage with the council to probably a greater degree than we would have been able to otherwise, to make sure that when we submit the application over the next few weeks, we know that the council are happy with it and that it's got the best chance possible of success.
Okay, excellent. John, any questions or thoughts?
Well, there is a question. One of the attendees has asked if you're happy to provide mentorship or somehow guide them in their business journey. I don't know. They didn't say exactly what aspect of their business journey they're interested in guiding or mentorship from, but I thought I'd relay that question. Do you work or guide or provide mentorship to people, and either informally or formally?
Yeah, I'm very happy to do so. I've been doing that in law from the moment I started practicing, and happy to do it to any others who feel that I can provide some assistance. I do tend to be quite clear and blunt in terms of giving advice, because the way I see it is that as a mentor, my role is to tell people what others won't say. So, I've had people who come to my legal chambers and have turned up in jeans and trainers for open events, etc. And I've pulled them aside and I said, what are you doing? This is law, it's not a pub. Once you're through the door and you're establishing your practicing, then fine, you can wear whatever you want or wear nothing at all. The choice is yours. But when you're trying to get into the most conservative profession in the country, you need to follow certain rules and let people know that you are a safe pair of hands. To be fair, normally when I provide that kind of advice, it's well received because people realize it's coming from the right place. But yeah, I'm still learning. I'm still being mentored by people. Anyone who says that they know everything is a liar. And if I can share some of the experiences that I've learned, then I'm happy to provide that. I'll pass on that.
To pivot this a little bit to crowdfunding, it's also a similar thing, Mark, that when someone shows up with an offer, they want to raise money, it has to meet certain standards. And even if those aren't explicit standards, there's a comparison that the passive investors are making. I can invest in this deal, that deal, that deal. Which one do I like? Who provides information well? Who takes me through what they're trying to do? Who makes sure the numbers add up? So there is this comparison shopping going on. And if someone wants to put forward a deal to raise money, it has to stack up well. It has to compare well. And if you're not sure what that means, well, go look at the other deals that are already on the platform. Look at the ones that have already funded. Those are clear examples of, hey, they were good enough for a bunch of investors. If that's the standard that deal met to raise that money, you probably have to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time researching the other deals, the successful raises on David's platform before I actually submitted my draft investment memorandum, because I wanted to make sure, it's my mind, you only get one shot at these things. I didn't want David to come back and say, Mark, it's not bad, but it's not good enough. So a lot of those 5 a.m. starts were spent, fine tuning the detail, the numbers, etc., to make it bulletproof. It was almost for me like a legal submission. I had to make sure that I got it right and I nailed it. And thankfully, with the help of David and his team, we were able to get it into the position and the shape it's in now.
I'm smiling, John, because when the first draft of the equity offer document arrived in, I think that was sort of Brenda's comment. This is like a legal brief. So we had to, not mind me saying, maybe take a little bit of it out to make it a sort of shorter, succinct equity offer document. But listen, detail's good. Usually the opposite is too often the case, that people supply information and you're missing parts. So you're having to go back and chase information. You provided a wealth of information, and that was a matter of, okay, what's relevant to be there when asked for, as opposed to what needs to be in the initial sort of overview of the project. So we've kind of hinted on this project. So let's pivot on to that then for sort of the next couple of minutes before we finish off. So I am going to attempt a bit of IT. John will smile because IT is not my forte. But this is on YouTube, and this is just a very brief look at your project that you're bringing to the platform. So
So
I'm not sure.
it's opening today, David. So that means the document's available to review right now, correct?
Yes, correct. The next slide covers that. So
Okay.
I'm assuming the music isn't playing, but you can get a sense of what's gone past there.
That's a shame. I spent hours searching for the right song, actually.
We'll have it right for next week. But this is the project here on the left-hand side, Mark. This is your 4 townhouses and apartments.
With the hot air balloon. Yeah, it's quite a.
Yeah.
So
Stephen,
you're giving hot air balloon rides.
You got to do that. So we've got the kids' playground. We've got the 4 townhouses at the front of the scheme, and then, as you'll see in due course, there are 2 larger blocks of apartments. I'm just going over the top now. One's got 19 units in it, the other one's got 23 units in it, and they're, as my planning consultant says, nestled into the wooded hillside to be as unobstructive as possible, really.
Okay, cool. So let's try and put it back into the presentation. So I'm going to save the rest of that for our Tuesday night webinar, which I'll mention now. And here we are back onto our slideshow. There we are. So we've just been to there. So yeah, so this is the actual project then, and so that was a nice wee kind of fly through of the area. But do you want to just take a minute and explain you explain some of it, but how did you source this? Would be a good place. I think investors like to know, how did you come across this, and what was it excited you about this project?
Yeah, so Land Insight is software that's used by lots of property developers, and it's a great piece of kit because it ties in with Companies House, the land registry, and various other sources of information in order to allow you to scan any particular area using Google Maps and identifying underdeveloped plots of land. So here we've got 4 separate plots which comprise the build site, just over 2 acres in total, so 9,000 square meters, I think it is. And yeah, there was a question of scanning the locality and identifying the fact that there was clear potential here. Obviously, from that photo, you'll see that it looks, it's not quite so visible here as opposed to using ordnance survey data, which is also in the software. But the initial impression was that it was a clearly underutilized site and arguably a straightforward one. Then when one gets on site and you see that it's in fact bordering onto the green belt and it's on the side of a valley, it's like, okay, so that's a bit more challenging. Still potential here, but definitely not straightforward. And that's been part of the challenge, which I think I feel we've overcome, of getting the council on side to make them understand that it's a viable proposition. So 42 apartments, as we just saw, 2 large blocks. And in addition to that, there are 4 townhouses at the front of the scheme, which maintains the street scene that's currently there as well, which was important to the council. There's a projected 50% ROI, and we're looking to raise £319,000 as a minimum to cover the remaining planning costs. We as a company to date have already spent, I think it's £95,000 at the last counts of costs in order to make sure that all of the required documentation and reports are in place and give the council the comfort that it needs. So we've done the ecological impact survey, we've identified the bats, the newts, the slow worms on site, made provision. Obviously, architects have spent a lot of time revising the initial proposal. So, for example, you saw in the video there that there was a kids' playground at the front. In the initial version, there was actually a small block of 4 units at the front of the scheme, and the council indicated they felt that constituted overdevelopment. So we took that up and we put the kids' playground there. Initially, where the 4 townhouses were, or are now, sorry, there was another block of flats. And again, the council said they prefer for the existing street scene to be maintained. So there are houses there at the moment, and we're planning to put houses there in due course. So a lot of iterations by the architects. Our architects have worked on behalf of the council, which was the main reason we went to them, to build an apartment block of 23 units, I think, 200 meters on the same road. So they understand the terrain, they understand the locality, they understand what the council wants because they've been used by the council. Similarly, my planning consultant, he's been used by the council itself to advise it when it has planning related disputes. The landscape and ecology and arboricultural team, that's actually one company called Lizard, and they again were used by the council for the scheme down the road. So we've gone to great lengths to get a team of experts and experts who know the locality to maximize our chances.
That's very, very important. And I was certainly impressed when I saw the overall project team. I do know Michael McGee, who you mentioned earlier. Yeah. He comes from a part of the world here in the center of the universe over here in Northern Ireland, but very experienced in London and England and in different aspects of property construction and all the rest of it. So I was glad when I saw him as part of your project team and indeed the others. And that is important, particularly on a planning application, because it is high risk, as we often emphasize. This is the high risk side of equity investing. If the application is turned down or you don't get to an approval on appeal, then the investment is gone. But obviously
subject to appeal, yes.
Yes. So if the appeal doesn't come through, then there is that possibility that there's a dead end eventually. But if you've got a good project team, you can at least try and identify the areas where the problems may be and how to address them. So people can leave an email address and a amount that they may be interested in investing in this to record their interest. This is not making an investment, it's just literally registering your interest with us. And Dalray then can communicate and stay in touch with that. The pitch page is there, overview, financials, team, again, the forum where Mark will answer questions from investors and everyone can see that Q&A and benefit from it. And of course, then you can actually register and download. Yes, John?
So is this, what's the status of this when it comes to the Leo status?
It's a view deal.
Okay, so people can see the full document, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So on the full pitch page is full document, and it's been.
They cannot pledge money at this time, but they can read the full document so they can be prepared when the webinar happens. Bring their questions forward, use the forum, really get into it and get to understand all the moving parts in the team, so they have a full background before they actually have to make a decision to invest. Is that fair?
Yes, no, that's really well put. It's an opportunity to review all the information, ask questions on the forum, but then next Tuesday, as you can see there, 7 p.m. next Tuesday, Mark is going to be on a live project webinar. And it's a great opportunity for people who have questions then to come and interact directly with Mark and some members of his team on a live webinar. So it's a great opportunity to get questions answered, understand the project better. Obviously, Mark will have more time to sort of deep dive into aspects of the project and really get a good overview and as I say, answer any questions. And we find these very, very valuable. So there is the link on the screen. If Dal is on the broadcast, which he should be, he could drop the link into the chat box, and you'll be able to register for the project webinar next Tuesday night. And then the intention, Mark, is to go live next Thursday. So live next Thursday, and that is the 24th of November, 12 noon. And there's a combination of there's platform investors who have expressed an interest in this. But you also have brought some potential investors to the table to view the project on our site. So this is very much a team effort, Mark, that you're bringing some investors to look and we're bringing investors and together we hope to get this funded.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's got the same aim. Everyone wants to achieve planning and get, the projected return. And that's why we've gone to great lengths to cover all the bases to make sure that our investment and also that of our proposed investors is realized and returned. So We've had 2 pre-apps with the council now, a number of amendments to the large blocks at the back, and the council have now said, you know, they are content with the bulk and mass, which anybody who knows about planning and apartment blocks will know that that's often the primary concern of councils, that the thing is too big in simple terms. And so we've worked with them and they've now said, no, it's not too big. It actually works from their perspective, which we think is a great thing.
Okay, so that's next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. A project webinar with Mark and some of the team, and then live for investment.
Is this when we party with the footballers?
You can party with the footballers and maybe their wags if you're lucky, John.
There we go. Not bad for this.
Offer you can't refuse.
They are. He's John's looking at his diary now to see when he next back in into London. So,
Exactly.
so looking forward to that, Mark. Looking forward to working with you on the project, and I'll drop the link in just at the end when we finish off. So next week we're going to talk a bit more about this. I know there was a wee bit of a pre-launch a few months ago on this, but we're definitely moving in January 2023 to a property funding podcast in the place of a weekly broadcast. We will still have some broadcasts, but it just won't be weekly. A lot of the feedback we're getting is that we've got great topics, some really good guests, but 10-15 minutes just isn't really enough to really get into the nuts and bolts that people are looking for. So really we probably need a 45-50 minute podcast type forum to really take education to the next level and really deep dive into a lot of the great topics that we talk about. So I'll obviously be sort of hosting that podcast. It's going to be called the Property Funding Podcast, but John will be a regular contributor. I think is going to be his official title. So he will be on to bring his knowledge and his unique take on the market, and that will happen. But we'll mention more about that next week as we move towards Christmas. So guest next week, absolutely delighted that we've got Rochelle, and I think actually her business partner's coming on as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a team of 2, right?
Yeah, is her name, I could be wrong now, it's Natasha or
yes,
Natalie?
Yes. Okay, Natasha.
So Natasha, yeah, excellent. So they've got a great website. There's a really good video they have on their website. But I've been talking to Rochelle off and on now for many months, just around the whole area of what they do as a business model, what we do, how we can work together. They're a bit of a hybrid as a traditional broker for sort of senior debt and investment, but they also have like a comparison site angle to that. But they have a really strong network of developers and investment sources. So yeah, I thought it'd be really beneficial to get their take on the market, John, as well, in terms of are they pivoting given the current climate, etc. So they are the guests next week. So really looking forward to that. Fantastic.
To provide a little sizzle, one is more historically from an accountancy background, and the other is more from an architecture background. And they've been running this business for some time now. So yeah, I think it'll be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, but yeah, I know you're I don't know if they've ever been a client of yours, or you're certainly aware of them. Have you just come across them through, I think, did they reach out to you to ask questions about compliance?
As some people know, I run these Ask John things where someone books 20 minutes. So some time ago, they booked in a 20-minute call, and it evolved into a whole series of calls and conversations and online Zoom sessions. So
okay, so why is that not working? Okay, I was
all good, David. Keep talking.
yeah. No, it's not gonna work. Well, we'll send an email out. I had the link there for the webinar on Tuesday night. Try one more time and let's see what happens.
Which webinar is this for?
One on Tuesday night, the one for Mark. But it's not liking it for some reason, so there we are. There'll be an email go out to everyone who attended with the webinar, and there'll be updates anyway from the platform. So, okay, well, listen, Mark, thanks for coming today, and
that's all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for that, and we will see everyone again next Thursday. So this will be on YouTube within about half an hour as usual, and I'll send you a link, Mark, so you can forward on to some of your people. All right, bye everyone. Bye bye.